Hi, I'm Rick Bogaert. I'm landscape architect with Parkway Infrastructure Constructors, and we're going to conduct a question and answer period regarding the spring 2013 prescribed burns, and what the public can expect with respect to these sites that we're going to burn. We will notify the public when the burns will take place on the Twitter account. And then we will also post photos after the burns have taken place. And this information will be on the website. The prescribed burns are obviously controlled burns. They're ignited in a controlled fashion in restoration sites, specifically of tall grass prairie. And the real reason for having a prescribed burn is to really provide a stronger restoration site for the tall grass prairie species, but also to really eliminate the herbaceous and woody invasive plants. And the woody invasive plants have a shallower root system. They cannot sustain themselves with the heat that is created in a prescribed burn. The deeper rooting tall grass prairie plants respond to the heat from the spring burns and begin growing quicker than the invasive species that we are trying to eliminate. In 2012, there was approximately 7 hectares of land that was burned in a controlled environment again, and they were conducted primarily in the Chapa Street restoration area. These burns were very successful, and as a result, the tall grass prairie sites were flourishing with SAR plants, species at risk plants in the summer. The burns will be undertaken between March 1st and April the 10th, and the burns are really conducted with a burn specialists, and they are conducted when the atmospheric pressure, wind conditions, environmental conditions are consistent with the burn plans for each burn block. So the wind direction, wind speed, relative humidity is probably the 3 most important elements from the atmospheric conditions that we look at to conduct these burns. Sometimes the environmental conditions do not allow these burns to take place on all of the burn blocks that are identified, but we will do what we can to burn the 6 or 7 hectares that are identified for the 2013 spring prescribed burn program. Wildfire specialists are conducting the burns, and they are a licensed, certified company with the Ministry of Natural Resources, and they have extensive experience in prescribed burns. Each burn lasts generally 15 to 30 minutes, depending on the size of the block. It really depends on what are the values or the elements within that block. If there are areas that we want to exclude, and there are a few areas that we want to exclude, those need preparation in terms of either a burn break or the wetting of the surrounding area, so that those values do not. After the burn block is ignited, then the entire burn block, of course, is monitored and watched from pretty much all sides from the trained staff. The suppression takes place once the burn block has completely burned, and we do not move on to another block and ignite that block until the block that we have finished is completely suppressed. In other words, if there is any smoldering logs, brush, anything of that nature, it is completely extinguished with water. On the day of the burn, there is a briefing in the morning, typically between 9 and 10 a.m., and that is conducted by the burn boss, and they will have all of their staff at this briefing, as well as emergency services, and they go through the entire plan of that day to inform everyone what is the sequence of the burn, how we're going to conduct the burn block by block, because some blocks are going to be burned differently than others. They will identify who the security people are and at what places they will be to ensure that there is safety. We walk and talk through the communications. All of the staff have walkie-talkies, and they're all brought to the meeting to ensure that they're all on the same station and people know where they're to be posted, so that if there is anything that changes to that burn, then we can talk to each other fairly quickly. Prior to ignition, the site is then reviewed by the burn boss and PIC staff to ensure that the burn brakes are adequate, that any values within the burn blocks are appropriately suppressed, so that to ensure that those values do not burn. And then we put everybody into place in terms of the security, and the staff then begin the ignition. SAR specialists will be on the site prior to ignition to inspect the site for any species at risk, primarily snakes. They will be there at the site during the burn, and they will also inspect the site after the burn. There will also be staff on site to ensure that there is safety to pedestrians coming to look at the burn, and they will be placed at the extremity of each burn block. Equipment that's typically used is igniters, and then they're handheld igniters that they use. The ignition fuel is a mixture of gas and diesel. It is a slow burning fuel, and they are primarily drip torches. So the staff will start the burn process at the edge of the burn block by basically dripping that fire or the balls of fire onto the edge of the burn block, and it is done in a prescribed manner based on the type of block that we are burning. They also carry backpacks. There's a staff that carry backpacks of water for suppression. They also use quad runners with tanks of water on them for watering down edges, burn breaks, anything that is of value that we want to protect. If there is any of those values that do smolder, as we mentioned earlier, they will then go in with the quad runners or walk and suppress those areas. They also carry shovels, so that if there is any additional suppression that has to take place or protection, they have shovels to dig trenches to basically stop fire from getting out of control. Initially, the landscape, when it is finished, will have a black ash across the surface. Anything that is an invasive species will basically be gone, and in a period of 6 weeks after the burn, we will start to see the greening of those burn blocks, primarily with tallgrass prairie species. Videos are available on the YouTube channel. There will be before and after videos and photos available on those sites. The Ojibwe Nature Center and Science City have valuable information on the prescribed burns in the restoration areas. If the public has any concerns regarding the prescribed burns, they can call the Public Liaison Office for more information.